Our teacher, Mr. Fantari Aji Dharma Suparno, and all of my friends in this class. Good morning. First of all, let me introduce myself. That my name is Adrial Palito Dingalo, and I'm from Civil Engineering program. In this lovely morning, I would like to thank for opportunity that was given to me to present my journal resume for this final examination with the title Variables of Property Assessment on Housing in West Palu. The reason I chose this journal is because now the population growth is very fast, accompanied by the rate of economic growth which is quite significant at this time. Therefore, the need for our knowledge of the variables in the valuation of residential property that will be the residents of the community. In this presentation, I will discuss this journal into four parts. The first is about introduction, the second is about the methodology, the third is about result, and the fourth is about conclusion and suggestion. Housing as a container for humans or families in carrying out life, because shelter isn't only for shelter but also to protect themselves from natural conditions. The research focused on identifying the variables that most influence the property valuation in the form of land and buildings for housing, especially housing in West Palu, based on perception of housing resident, or we usually call it consumers. Data collection was carried out by distributing questionnaires to determine respondent perception about the variables that most influence the valuation of residential property in West Palu. There are three houses that are used as sample in the study. Result. First, answer reliability testing or reliability analysis. From this table shows that the variable has a high alpha coefficient of 0.768, or it can be said that all indicator variables from the questionnaires are reliable, where the value is above the minimum index 0.60, as in the reliability index criteria table. Second, analysis of property valuation variable, land and buildings in housing in West Palu. The table beside is one of the three samples used in this study. From this table, we see that there are several variables that affect value, namely physical factors, economic factors, social factors, governance factors or regulations, accessibility, and availability of facilities. In general, the most influential variable in property valuation in the form of land and buildings in West Palu housing, based on the perception of the occupants of the housing, is the accessibility variable in the form of distance to the city center and educational facilities. Social factor variable in the form of population number and density and availability of facilities in the form of shopping centers. These three variables are very influential compared to the other variables because respondents assume that accessibility, social factor, and facility availability are very important in a house settlement and will have an effect on demand for housing where residents will pay attention to accessibility, facilities, and social factor in meeting their needs for housing so that it becomes the most influential variable on property valuation. In conclusion, the most influential variable in property valuation in the form of land and building in West Palu housing based on the perception of residential residents or consumer is for Gria Mandona housing accessibility variable in the form of distance to the city center by 81% and facility availability variable in the form of shopping centers by 82%. For bio in the housing, social factor variables in the form of a population of 77% and a population density of 77%. For Bumi Anggur housing, the accessibility variable in the form of distance to educational facilities is 79% and the availability of facilities in the form of shopping centers is 78%. Suggestion for this research. In this research, it is recommended the valuation of residential property isn't only in terms of the perception of residential or consumer, but also the perception of the developers and the appraisal consultant. Our teacher, Mr. Fantari Ajidharma Suparno, and all of my friends in this class of this session. I think I have presented all the content of my journal resume for this final examination from part 1 until part 4. That's all my presentation. Thank you for your kind attention and I will be ready to answer some question. Hopefully I can answer all the question. Again, thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Dimas Yofi Pratama. Thank you for the opportunity was given to me. Based on what you have explained, there are several variables that greatly affect the evolution of housing in West Palu, one of which is the accessibility variable. Why does the accessibility variable greatly affect its assessment? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jovi, for the question. I will answer it. The accessibility variable is about access, which is about mobility in everyday life. Easy access will greatly help everyday life. For example, access to shopping, access to education, and access to other public facilities. Smooth mobility access will be preferred over non-smooth mobility access. Thank you.